Good morning. It's July 29th, and this is to my liberal friends. I was traveling yesterday, so I didn't get one done. But how long can Joe Biden continue to play defense for his son Hunter? How long can he go on trying to brush everything off by simply saying, "I'm proud of my son"? There's no doubt that the frustration level with Hunter Biden is rising daily with the senior staff of the White House. The problem is the president is unwilling to bite the bullet and allow his son to face the consequences for his mistakes. It also begs the question of just how much Joe was actually involved in Hunter's business dealings. From the beginning of the 2020 campaign, questions arose about Hunter Biden and the multiple deals and positions he was involved in with foreign entities. Joe Biden steadfastly maintained he had no knowledge of Hunter's business affairs and had never spoke to him about his business dealings. Now, most people took this claim with a grain of salt. How do you fly to and from China and father and son never talk about what the son was doing in China? Did Joe just think Hunter was sightseeing while he was conducting affairs of state? The first break in the dam began with a laptop that Hunter took to a repair shop in Delaware. It contained a trove of damaging information, not to mention the salacious photos of Hunter engaging in questionable activities. But the Biden campaign enlisted their friends in the media and intelligence community to say the laptop was Russian disinformation and was not valid. This included a letter signed by over 50 prominent people from the intelligence community that stated, in their opinion, the laptop was not Hunter Biden's property, but something created by some nefarious group. And all the major media outlets fell into line and parroted that claim. But as they say, something happened on the way to the church. It turns out the laptop was valid. And after a year plus, the New York Times and the Washington Post had to admit that they had examined the computer and it was in fact Hunter Biden's, and the material contained on the computer was exactly what it appeared to be. Joe Biden did not waver in his claim that he was in fact Sergeant Schultz and he knew nothing. Anytime someone from the media had the courage to ask him about Hunter and the damaging information, they got an angry retort from the president. He continued to claim he never spoke to Hunter about anything he was involved in with financially as far as those matters. And then we had the two IRS criminal investigators come to the Congress and testify that their investigation was repeatedly stalled or thwarted by attorneys within the Department of Justice. Gary Shapley produced material from a communication app that had Hunter basically threatening a top official of a Chinese energy company and saying that the Bidens got things done and his father was sitting beside him while he said this. The defenders of Biden immediately said there's no real proof that Joe Biden was actually sitting there and Hunter may have simply made all that up. Shapley was accused of being a Republican and someone out to get the president. But the second IRS witness was a self-professed Democrat who was also a gay man, not your normal Republican. But the Justice Department moved forward and entered into a plea deal with Hunter Biden. It would mean the president's son would escape jail time for some serious charges that any other defendant would probably get some form of incarceration. And a lot of people thought it was a sweetheart deal, and it turned out that way. The calls for fair justice were growing, and particularly Republicans were calling out half-truths and questioning the way the Justice Department was giving Hunter Biden special treatment. But as you could be expected, the media kept saying this was a routine plea deal and should be formalized as soon as possible. But then they ran into Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, and things began to fall apart. The Justice Department had refused to release the details of the agreement and more than likely expected the judge to just nod and give her approval. But Judge Noreika took a look at the agreement in her courtroom and explained that the provisions giving Hunter a wrist slap for tax and gun charges were, quote, not straightforward. They were atypical, end quote, without legal precedent and potentially unconstitutional. Not only does the Justice Department stand accused of treating the young Biden with kid gloves, a federal judge now says the president's son received a sweetheart deal like no other. But things got really testy when the judge asked about an immunity clause that appeared to shield Hunter Biden from any future charges. She pointedly asked if there were any other investigations of Hunter Biden that were ongoing, specifically asking if any investigation might deal with failure to comply with the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Since the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, had already said there was other ongoing investigations, the Justice Department lawyers had to admit that Mr. Biden may be subject to other charges. The defense immediately objected, claiming they had a deal in place. Things began to fall apart quickly after that, and in the end, the plea deal was withdrawn. Hunter Biden pled not guilty, which he's already said he was guilty, and we're back to square one. Now, call this a win for judicial fairness, and thank a judge that did her job. She did not just rubber stamp something that had obviously been worked out with prosecutors and the Biden defense team. It basically was giving Hunter Biden the famous get-out-of-jail-free card. In short, the Justice Department had been caught playing games and has no good answers. That's because it was never expected to have to give any. The Hunter deal was always premised on the notion that nobody would see the sausage. The Justice Department would release the bare bones of an agreement, the press would infuse it with credibility, and the judge would sign off. It didn't count on two whistleblowers providing evidence of political favoritism or on a court that questions why prosecutors are acting as a Hunter Biden favor factory. The judge also called out one of the attorneys for Hunter Biden, Jessica Bengals, for having misrepresented her identity in an attempt to get the court clerk to remove a key document from the tax case against Hunter Biden. She had pretended to be a lawyer associated with the House Republican staff on the House Ways and Means Committee. What the judge in the case has done is given both sides 30 days to figure out how they're going to work this out. That means no hiding some form of immunity in the language where they hope nobody would actually read it. It means admitting that future charges are possible, and this agreement would not cover those crimes. In short, it means that Hunter Biden should not be treated as somebody special. He should be treated like any other defendant, and not just because he's the president's son. The House committee will continue to investigate, and David Weiss will have to testify with the Hunter Biden investigation still in full force, and he's going to have to explain how he crafted this sweetheart deal. I believe he will be on the proverbial hot seat. Recent revelations show that one of the staff members in his office was in fact a close personal friend of Hunter Biden, referring to him as a brother. Alexander Snyder Mackler was a former legal counsel to Joe Biden and a press secretary for him while he was in the Senate. I'm not sure what role he played in the Hunter Biden investigation, but the fact that he was in the office and in contact with the Biden family raises some interesting questions. And all of this now becomes more of a problem for Joe Biden as he begins to ramp up his campaign for a second term. His credibility is in serious question as he tries to maintain that he was not involved in the business dealings of his son. He's quit saying he never spoke to Hunter about them, and now he's saying he was never involved. Now, whether Joe Biden participated in conference calls by listening in, or whether, as Hunter said in a text message provided to Congress by an IRS whistleblower, that he would sit with his son as Hunter conducted overseas business with Chinese associates, seemingly being used as leverage to close these business deals. And that's according to the reporting of the New York Post. And they remain major questions to be answered. More specifically, Hunter's former business partner, Devon Archer, is reportedly set to testify under oath next week that on at least 24 occasions, Hunter would dial in his father and put him on speakerphone during Hunter's meeting with overseas business people. If that's Archer's testimony and it proves to be true, then a very real question are set to be dominated about what then the vice president did in and out of office. Most problematically for the first president are the allegations by Mykola Zlochevsky, the Ukrainian businessman who ran Burisma, the Ukrainian energy holding company, and you remember that Joe and Hunter both may have received $5 million from, and Biden himself is having his own words fed back to him. In the 2020 campaign, Biden denied on multiple occasions that he ever discussed business with Hunter. One of the most specific, which turned out to be a lie, was, "My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking, China?" End quote. That was on the debate stage in October 2020. I think we all know now that Hunter Biden made millions of dollars in deals with Chinese companies, and the real question is, did Joe Biden share in those monies? These questions that will be put to the public, and Joe Biden might not like the answers. I know some of the public are going to be very interested in hear what they have to say. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.